So, here's a question for you then. This is a good question, I think. What is the difference between a good thought and a bad thought? What's the difference? Why is it that some people really struggle with life? I mean, they really struggle. I mean, drugs, they're on drugs, they're in poverty, they struggle to get out of it, they're addicted to gambling or addicted to social media. Why is it that some people have this struggle with that? And why is it that other people have these brilliant creative lives? Or, they're able to play the violin, and not only play the violin, they're very sporty, and they're engaged, and they're happy, they live fulfilling lives in the world. Why is it that we have this dearth of experience here if everybody has access to this higher level of consciousness and existence? Why do we have these problems and challenges in the world? Why is this the case? Well, this is where I want to introduce you to a book. And this book is called Power versus Force. Which is, funny enough, this book. This is Power versus Force. This is one of the most interesting and life-altering books that I've ever came across. And in this book, written by a guy called Dr. Hawkins, Dr. Hawkins introduced something called the map of consciousness. Map of consciousness. And this map looks something like this. In fact, it doesn't just look something like this. This is his map of consciousness. Now, as you can see here, within this map of consciousness, there is emotions. Okay? These are emotional states. Shame, guilt, apathy, grief, fear, desire, anger, pride, courage, neutrality, willingness, acceptance, reason, love, joy, peace, and enlightenment. And he split these up into 3 distinct areas: spiritual, reason, integrity, and survival. And I want you to bear with me on this, because I believe that understanding this gives us an insight into why the world is the way it is, why people struggle in a certain way, why other people don't struggle in a certain way, when it comes down to both the information and insight or imagination. I think this is the reason why. So this level is lower. It's a low level. This is what he calls force. So what exactly is force? Force is when we are quite literally forcing things to happen. It is lower emotions. Right? We're talking shame, guilt, fear, anger, etc. Now, if you are working from these places, say you work from a place of anger, well, if you've ever worked from a place of anger, I have, well, shit gets done. Stuff gets done. Absolutely. Stuff happens. But what is the cost? The cost of that is that you are, frankly, unhappy. You're unfulfilled. And what really is happening is that you're borrowing from your future. You're borrowing from your future self is what's actually going on. Because these lower emotional states where you're forcing yourself to do things, it's never going to last. It's like if you go on a diet. If you go on a diet and you're forcing yourself not to eat, well, it's never going to last. Because you're going to run out of what? You're going to run out of willpower. Willpower is an actual energy source. You've only got so much of it. And you're going to spend your willpower on like a diet. Okay, great. You spend that on a diet, you're going to run out of willpower. What are you going to do? You're going to binge eat. It's exactly what's going to happen. So unless it comes from a different place, it's simply not going to last. How many people decide that they're going to stop eating out of shame? I'm going to stop eating out of shame. Well, you get something called bulimia. right? Bulimia is when you eat and eat and eat, or you starve yourself, or anorexia, where you stop eating altogether because you feel ashamed about your body. This is the force, is the area of dysfunction. That is what force is, right? It is through violent or aggressive means. If you're interacting with someone else, two people or three people or whatever, it's using deceit, intimidation, violence. You're seeing things as a win lose. You can't have a win-win. It's a win-lose. Right? I win and you lose. That is the realm of force. And you're basically doing it and borrowing from your future self. It's lower consciousness levels. And we have something called attractor fields. Or attractor patterns. Now, attractor fields and attractor patterns is a concept where you will attract to you what you are most experiencing. So if you are attracting, say, guilt, then you're going to attract things you to feel guilty over. Let's say that you are in shame, for example, okay? You're in shame. Well, what that means is that you are going to attract into your life a humiliating existence. You're going to attract a miserable existence. You're going to despise yourself. And guess what? You're going to want to die. You're not going to want to be in this world anymore. And by the way, the lowest attractor pattern is shame. Because lower than shame is 0, and that is death. If you feel shame, you want to kill yourself. Or you want to do things in your life which eliminates your existence. If you're on drugs, or you're an addict, this is where you are. You feel shame. You feel shame, guilt, and apathy, and you don't want to be here anymore. You are going to attract into your life that which you feel and that which you experience the most. So if you fear the world, guess what's going to happen? You're going to have lots of anxiety. The world is going to be a frightening place for you. That's how these attractor patterns work. And the same can be said if you're up here. If you feel like, you know what, the world is a great place to be. It's a great place to be. And you're willing to interact with the world, well then you're going to feel optimistic about the world. You're going to feel hopeful. You're going to get situations where things just amazingly just happen. That is how... This is why people struggle the way they do. Because they experience the world as they see the world. They experience the world, they get what they expect from the world. That is force. These people at this level are forcing themselves, or they're forcing their lives in certain directions. And what's happening is that they're constantly being brought down into lower states. Because what are they using? They're using willpower. Or I should say will force, really, right? They're forcing it. And willpower, guess what? It depletes. You don't have endless supplies of willpower. It's like you've got a leaky sieve. It's not going to happen. So you're going to go lower and lower and lower when you're reliant on this force. That is why people have really bad times. And by the way, I didn't mention this before because it wasn't relevant, but as we're moving on to power and how power works rather than force, I'm going to explain to you how you can read this map. So this is the name of the level, so enlightenment, peace, joy, etc. This is the energetic state. So the higher your vibration, right, the higher your vibration, the more deeper you're able to go into your imagination and get information and insight and wisdom. Your predominant emotional state is what you're going to feel. So if you are accepting, then you're going to feel, you're going to feel forgiveness an awful lot, right? If you are, prideful, then you're going to feel scorn, demand things of people, right? Your view on life is going to be harmonious, hopeful, meaningful. Your view of God might be vengeful, denying, disdainful, condemning, or wise, or loving. What, therefore, is power. What is power? Power is expansive. Right? It's expanding. Force is contracting. Because you're always losing raw power. You're always losing energy, right, when you're trying to force stuff. So power is expanding. It's ever expanding. It's self-sustaining. You don't need to force anything. It just happens, right? You're aligning yourself with higher principles like truth, joy, love. Okay? Power is life-affirming. Whereas force is life-denying. Remember I mentioned about drug abuse, right? You're denying life, you're denying existence. Whereas power is life-affirming. Life is good. You want to be awake, you want to be alive, you want to be conscious. That is why power is good. It integrates rather than divides. This is where these attractor fields that I mentioned earlier, well, guess what? It's going to bring in all these brilliant, brilliant, brilliant things into your life. Love, compassion, joy, everything. So I believe that this is our theory of why things are so poor for so many people. Because where do good and bad ideas come from? That was the original question that I posed to you. Where do good ideas come from? And where do bad ideas come from? Okay? Where do they come from? Well, let's go back to our theory that what's happening is that we've got our brain, okay? And we've got our left hemisphere, we've got our right hemisphere. The left is all about the real world and what's happening in the real world, and the right is all about the beyond, okay? It's all about the beyond. Now, if you have low levels of consciousness, then you're barely able to move out at all. You're barely able to use this right hemisphere of your brain. You're here. You're here all the time. By the way, if you look, people which really struggle with this, what are they doing? They're looking down. I can remember at school, I once met a girl who, she always looked down. She was always so sad. She was so depressed. And I would tell her, look up. Just look up. Okay, stop looking down at the edge. Just look up. Where was she? Where was she on this map of consciousness? I'll tell you where she was. She was here. Yeah? She was scared of the world. She has anxiety about the world. The world was a dangerous place. The world is a harmful place. It's a hurtful place. If I look down, the world's not going to bother with me. I'm not going to bother with it. Apathy. She was hopeless. Right? She saw herself living a tragic and an evil existence. That she didn't deserve love. She didn't deserve care. She didn't deserve anything. Right? That was her state. And by me simply telling her, look up. Look up. Well, guess what? Her view of the world changed, if only a little bit. Because when we look up, well, guess what? Our physicality is changing. Our physicality is shifting. So, if you're using force, if you're at these lower levels, these survival paradigms within the map of consciousness, then you're here. So you're not going to be able to access anything else. You're going to want pleasure. You're going to want immediate gratification. You're going to waste time. You're going to do things which aren't in your best interest to do. Because you are, what are you doing? Life denial. So if you're denying life, you're going to be spending time consuming, you're going to be spending time being distracted. This is why people say stuck in their lives. Because how are they going to be able to get themselves out of the predicament they're in? How can you expect this same organ that got you into this state to then get you out of it again? The answer is you can't. If you are stuck here, if you're stuck in this loop, then you're not giving yourself any time for the right hemisphere of the brain to access anything above here for that split moment, that split second, for that new thought, for that new idea to come in to disrupt this. That doesn't happen. It doesn't happen because you're not giving it any time, you're not giving it any space. I've mentioned before, the best way to access this right hemisphere of the brain, deep meditation, psychedelics, hemisync. They're the 4 best ways. What does it do? Right, you're giving yourself time, breathing room, space. Right, it's going in a shower. It's driving a car without any distractions. You are basically taking a step back from the physical and allowing your brain to especially shut off for a bit so that your right hemisphere can do what it does. That is why people which have the lowest consciousness stay stuck where they are. Whereas people of the highest consciousness, well, they will just carry on ascending for as long as they want to ascend. Right? Because you're able to access far higher up in this. Get good ideas, good thoughts, good feelings, and you'll go beyond. And you stop worrying about this stuff. You stop worrying about material concern. You stop worrying about where money's coming from. You stop worrying about this stuff. And the moment you're able to let go of something is the moment it floods to you. A big part of this, by the way, is letting go. A big part of this letting go. A big part of healing is letting go. Because guess what? Why would someone be angry? Why would someone be angry? Why would someone fear? Why would someone have guilt? Because they're holding on to something. They're holding on to something that makes them angry. They're holding on to something that makes them scared. They're holding on to something that makes them feel guilty. A big part of moving up this energetic scale and being able to access these greater parts of this insight realm is by letting go. Forgiveness. Forgiving yourself. Forgiving those around you. That is why this is survival. You're not going to be able to thrive in life if you're here. The reason why this is reason integrity is because you're able to access this information field, which is this. And then here, this is beyond this. Right? This is where you're able to access something that's truly divine. Now, I can only really talk about these levels here. Right? This is where I have been in life. Right? Fortunately, I've only ever been here very short periods of time. But I can remember spending a lot of time around here, a lot of time around here. These days, I'm spending a lot of time around here. I have flashes of what this is, flashes, deep meditative state and everything else, but I can't really talk about it, not in any great depth, not really. So I'm not fully there. I'm just not, and I'm willing to be honest and say that. I understand where I want to get to, where I want to be. But this is my understanding of 27-year-old of what I think is happening, what I think is going on. And this is why we have good thoughts. Good thoughts come up here. And this is why I have bad thoughts. Bad thoughts come down here. Because we only care about our immediate short-term gratification and pleasure. All our negative thoughts come from lower vibrational frequencies. Should be read. Lower vibrational frequencies. And the lowest vibrational frequency is, guess what? It's the earth. It's our cardinal desires. It's our pleasure. That's where it's coming from. So that is why we have good and bad thoughts. And that is, of course, our full conversation about imagination. But that is only one half of the coin. What about information? Well, for that, let's get on to the PowerPoint. Information, by the way, is like I mentioned. It is the physical, tangible Earth. Yeah? It's what we're doing on this planet. Yeah, that is what information is. And like I mentioned before, you take imagination, it gets fed into information, which is the physical tactile world through our left hemisphere of the brain, and then that information goes back to the imagination as we actually do things. We're able to then access more of this imagination, able to access more of this, and then we're able to make changes in the world better depending on our level of consciousness. Good thoughts, bad thoughts, etc. Okay, and remember, I mentioned before, the brain, I don't think the brain is a warehouse at all. I think what the brain is a place which stores information in this information realm, and then it's encoded, and then we're able to access this information pretty much whenever we like. That's what the right hemisphere of the brain does. Okay? The brain is not a warehouse. The brain is a receiver, and it's also a doer in the physical, tangible world. Just a reminder of that. Information is worldly, and imagination is ethereal. It's somewhere else. Okay, now we know what that's all about. We'll get on to the PowerPoint.